This is a video to show you how I set up my home searches from the point of they're now set up, but now the client would like to see some homes. This is having a MLS portal set up. The client has hearted through their one home portal some homes, just liked some, and left some notes. The client just let me know that she would like to see some homes this week and that she had hearted her favorites. I go into my MLS, go into contacts, or I could just go into these recent used contacts to click on the client, and then I can scroll down to favorites. If you are trying to reference some of their actual searches or go into their portal, you can do all of that here. Also, I've shown in another video, but setting up a cart. This would be how you would save those favorited homes. So I'm going to go into her details and favorited homes. I'm going to search for ones that are still available because obviously we don't want to show the ones that are already under contract. I will then select those homes, go into cart, and in this case, this client already has her own cart. We'll put them in her cart, say add, or if I wanted to create a new cart, I could do that. Also, notes are helpful. A lot of times I will leave notes on properties as well as the client. That way I can keep track of what we've seen already. But in this case, I'll go ahead and move over to her total portal. We can delete the ones that either she's thumbed down or are already under contract. Remove. We can still see that's still 17 homes, which is a lot. I'm going to go through and double check these notes. For example, I had left notes on some of these that we saw, and I'm going to pare down this list. Now I've removed a few, however, some of these do have notes. For example, this one's sold as is, seller won't do any repairs. This one doesn't have room for a tiny house. This one we actually saw already. These are ones I'll go ahead and pull out. The client wants to focus on ones with pools, which would leave these 3 out of the list. Then I would look at them from the map. And you can see those are the selected ones out of the total. You can go into actions and go into directions, and it will give you driving directions from the ones you have selected. So you don't necessarily have to go in the order that they select. Say you're going to start down here or something, you could just go ahead and rearrange them to suit your own needs if you wanted to flip the direction. And then when you have your order scheduled, then you can go ahead and click on the LS number. It will open up a new tab for the listing. You can see the showing instructions here. I recommend double checking as far as what showing service they're using or if they're not using a showing service. Also good to note, for example, this one is wanting a lease back. So that's something I'm going to let the client know because she doesn't want to give a lease back. She needs to move in sooner rather than later. So it may not be a great option for her. But to schedule the showing, I would click on this button here, which is the BrokerBay button. It will open up BrokerBay and allow us to schedule for the showing. I do recommend always making sure to include the client's name on here, just so you can keep track of what you've shown them, and also for driving records later, if you got audited or something, you can see who you were showing homes to when. Then you would go ahead and select what day and what time you are wanting to show the property. I always will select whatever the maximum length is. And another pro tip, if this says auto confirm here, then it's a good indication it's a vacant property because it's being auto approved. Otherwise, when I hit book showing, it's going to have to schedule and be accepted by the seller or the listing agent before you get a confirmation. I would hit book showing to confirm the showing. And then I would go on to the next property. You can note here the drive times between the properties. I'm going to go ahead and assume a 15-minute showing time and then a 13-minute drive. So I round that to 30-minute window. If this one's scheduled for 5 o'clock, I'm going to schedule this one for 5:30 to 6:30. So this one's using the BrokerBay also. It's going to actually use the exact same link. You can go ahead and set it up as actual showings. You can set up multiple. That was one of the nice things about showing time over BrokerBay. Confirm the showing, and then you would go to the next listing on the list, click the BrokerBay button on this example again. It'll open it up on page, and then you go through the thing again, scheduling the showing time, put in the client's name, select the correct date, select the time. We would have had a 5 to 5:30 essentially, and then the next one, this one would be from 6 to 7, and then hit book showing. You do need to click this I understand button, otherwise it's going to do a pop-up on you. And then once I have all 3 of the showings requested, I will go ahead and print this page. If it's more than 2 homes, I'll print this page by hitting print. And then I will normally just print this in black and white with the instructions for the homes. This I'll print normally as a 2-sided print, and then have this be for the client. That way they have directions and they can see where we are going. And then I will go back and I will actually print just these pages, and I will do an agent full without a header for myself. That way it has that extra agent information as far as the days on market and agent remarks. These I will often reformat because I don't like when it will bleed into multiple pages. I think it's inefficient as far as having it waste extra pages of paper. For example, this one is supposed to be 3 houses, but instead it's showing 6 pages. So I would likely change the scale and make it 70%, say, and so it would shrink it down. Not enough. I'll do 60%. I'd be printing page 1, 2, and 4, basically. So then I would just go and I would hit print specific 1, 2, 4, and then I'd print just those pages that I need. And then I would go to client full and print. This has slightly less information, and normally I can make this a larger size paper because they aren't going to have quite as many things on those pages. So now I could go ahead and print it, say 75% of size. And I wouldn't print that page because they don't need that information. So I'd print 1, 3, and 4 on this. So say print 1, 2, 4, and then print. And I would have a client packet that would be the map, and then these 3 printouts for them in order of how we're looking at the homes. Now on my agent side, the pages I print, I will have those also stapled in order of which direction we're going, which one is, house 1, 2, 3. And then I would put the showing instructions from the showing service as far as what our showing window is. And then also if it's a combo box, I'll write the combo number on that piece of paper, or I'll write Supra, or if there's any kind of special notes in the showing, they say there's going to be a dog in the house or something like that, I would include that on my showing instructions. That way I know that information. I'm not having to check my phone to reference those instructions. That is my process for scheduling showings. Now I do want to show you an example if this service is ShowingTime instead of BrokerBay, which you can easily tell based on this hyperlink button here, but also you can tell when it's in the showing instructions, it'll say, ShowingTime instead of BrokerBay. You would just click on this button instead, and it will open ShowingTime. With this system, it does have a slightly easier user interface, I believe. We don't use the system anymore since it was bought out by Zillow, and so our board of realtors switched us over to BrokerBay, which is free, which that part is nice, but this will allow you to once again schedule the portal and the different times. It shows you their availability in a graph like this. So the black is blocked out times. If it had like a here, it may be that there's other showings. You can use this system to put in other MLS numbers or addresses to map things out if you don't want to use the MLS version for tracking things. You can put in an address here or an MLS number here, even if a house is not on ShowingTime. For example, this one's on BrokerBay. I'm going to go ahead and take this MLS number and put it in here. Now it's bringing up another home. Now it does specify that it's not on showing time, but at least for mapping purposes, it can allow you to manually say, oh, I requested it on a different system. And then you can put in the time just so you can see for your own organization purposes what your timeline will look like if you really like a graph for yourself. But this is not going to mean that you've scheduled it with BrokerBay. Just be aware that you still have to go in and schedule it through BrokerBay. Normally, I won't bother with that extra step. I will just have both systems. I'll have this one open, scheduling, if it's on showing time, and then I'll have BrokerBay open, scheduling it on that time. And on my paper is where I'm writing my times. That way I know what order it is. And I have my printout from the MLS mapping to know that that is in order of the way I want to go. Extra steps, I really wish there was an easier system to do that. For example, it's mapped at that, which was crazy. We wouldn't do necessarily like that. But you would use this as your reference for what order to go in, and then you would just schedule on the different systems, whether it be BrokerBay showing time, or sometimes they don't use either, and you have to contact the agent directly. If it says go and show on here, you know it is a auto approved showing time, and I would recommend when you write on your notes on your papers, you would include referencing go and show or appointment required, because that will give you an indication on whether or not it is an occupied home. If it's a go and show, it's normally a vacant property. So if you are outside your 1 hour window and you're running 15 minutes late, you don't have to worry as much about making sure that you make those times because it's auto approved anyway. So you can just still go. Versus if it's an appointment required, you know that it's likely an occupied home and you really need to be within your showing window. Otherwise, you could run into some issues, a homeowner being back home, somebody being pissed off. So that is a good note for you. So if you need to reposition your timing, or you're running late, you know which ones you don't need to be worried about and don't need to worry about fretting if you're running a couple minutes late. Normally, if I can help it and homes are really close together, I will try to do the go and shows near the end. So that way we're not as pushed for time. Because on some cases, especially if it's a new buyer you haven't worked with before, you may not realize how fast of a shower they are or how fast of a looker they are, or they may show up late to the first house and now you're behind schedule on everything. Generally speaking, though, I will give 15 minutes window to look at the property and then account for the drive and round up. So if it's a 15-minute drive, I'll schedule a 30 minutes between house 1 showing versus house 2 showing. So in this example, if we're seeing this at 2:15, my next showing would be at 2:45 for house 2. Granted, that also depends on the size of homes. If I was showing this client, these are $1.5 million homes. They're also a lot bigger square footage, and they're a client that I've been showing for a while that I know when we actually look at a home in person is because it's on the very, very short list. I know they're probably going to take at least 30 minutes on a house, at least. So I would give a lot more cushion. Whereas the client I was using for this example, I know she's a pretty quick looker and the homes are about 1,800 square feet, so half the size. So you can realistically look at a home within 15 minutes. So part of it will depend on the client. But I would always recommend writing that in your notes, what time you have when you print out your papers, what the showing access is, whether it's a combo and what the code is, and if it's vacant or occupied. So if this says auto confirm on it, then I call that a go and show, same as broker or showing time with their go and show setting. It's a good indication it's a vacant property. You don't always want to rely on the pictures, but sometimes that can be helpful. This is a very clearly vacant house. That would be, well, there's a bed in there. So it could be an occupied home. Another way you can also identify that would be on the actual showing itself, if it states at the bottom that it's vacant or not. That's another indication as well. So it says occupied owner. Sometimes it will say vacant. So that's another good tidbit would be to double check and see if it says occupied or not. Do not bank on this being correct. We're required in the MLS to fill something out on this, but that does not mean that the code is 0000. I would never put what the code actually is on here because that could be, get into anybody's hands. It's on the MLS, so agents can just see it without getting approval. But see, once again, it says owner type, and it should also state whether or not it's occupied. For example, this one once again says combo. It does say that it's vacant with a courtesy call. So that's a pretty good indication. This one could be one that is vacant. So if you did run a little bit late on your showings, you're probably not gonna, anger a homeowner that's home. It's this vacant property. Hopefully this is helpful and gives you an idea of how I set up the process of scheduling showings.